2013 Cookeville City Council meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Anderson.
Present.
Councilman Woodford.
Present.
Mayor Swallows.
Here.
Vice Mayor Epps.
Here.
Councilman Albright. Here. All present.
Thank you. Would everyone please stand for the moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. All right, consider approval of agenda as presented. Do we have any additions or subtractions from the agenda?
No change.
Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, consider approval of minutes of council meeting held on January 17th, 2013. Any questions about the minutes? Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Okay, on to the consent agenda. Excuse me. Item 3, set a date, March 7th, 2013, for a public hearing on ordinance 130203, amendments to the official street map. And item 4, consider awarding bid for transformers, sponsors the electric department. Any questions on the consent agenda? A motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
On to new business. Item 5, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 130102, amendment to the zoning code establishing a new zoning district entitled RAO, Redevelopment Area Overlay. Sponsors Mr. James Mills.
Mayor and council members, the proposed RAO district is intended to provide a method for encouraging development in areas in need of redevelopment or revitalization. In the Cookeville 2030 plan, 3 areas in the city were specifically identified as being in need of special emphasis for redevelopment or revitalization. Those areas are shown on the screen. These 3 areas, consisting of several blocks each, are generally located north of West 12th Street, north of the university, and then along North Willow Avenue. Then the second area is located west of Willow Avenue, and then the third area is located along West Broad Street. These are general boundaries of these areas, but these are where we've identified concentrations of properties in need of revitalization. The 2030 plan also describes the need for the establishment of incentives to encourage redevelopment in these areas, and this is what this ordinance is trying to address. The RAO district would function as an overlay zone that would be superimposed in addition to existing zoning classifications. Within established RAO districts, the Planning Commission and the City Council may waive or modify certain minimum development requirements to encourage or incentivize new, converted, or renovated residential or mixed-use development. The process that would be followed is generally what we currently utilize for our planned residential and planned commercial districts. The establishment of an RAO district would be contingent upon the submittal and approval of development plans, which would include site, floor, and elevation plans. The incentive for the developer is increased density and greater flexibility in design. And in part of this density, the city would have the ability or authority to allow significantly higher density, up to 20 units per acre. We would also have the ability to reduce setbacks, reduce parking, and other modifications to encourage development. Again, the developer would be required to commit to and adhere to a detailed plan for development as a condition for approval. Properties in a proposed RAO district must meet specific criteria before they could be approved. Again, one of the guiding criteria would be whether or not they're located within these areas identified in the plan, but they don't have to be. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Again, the uses that would be permitted are only those uses that are in the underlying zoning. So if we had an area that's zoned RS5, then you would only be allowed single-family attached and single-family detached structures. Multifamily would not. You don't add additional types of uses. But you could increase the density of those uses if we approved a plan. The minimum size for approval, if you're within these areas identified in the plan, then 1 acre is the minimum. Outside of these areas, a 2-acre minimum is required. And again, all cases, you must demonstrate that the area that you're proposing for an RAO district is in need of redevelopment. We would need documentation of the structures, the conditions, and so forth. 20 units per acre is what we can allow. I think it's significant to point out that this does not apply to multifamily, to apartments. If an area is zoned RM8, you could not increase the density of the apartments. One of the other findings of our 2030 plan was a need for single-family housing, and also the plan identified concerns about the amount of rental property within the city. So in developing this, the Planning Commission and the Planning Department felt like we did need to take the step that would encourage things we were trying to discourage. You could still do multifamily, but especially as a part of a mixed-use development. For example, you could have part of it being multifamily at the density required by the underlying zoning, but your townhouses, single-family, duplexes, you could increase the density for those. So it still allows flexibility. The approval process involves is fairly complicated, but it's done to assure that for the assurance of the developer and the city, and it involves approval and review by the Planning Department, the Planning Commission, and the City Council. The first step, if a developer wanted to look at some property to consider for the RA overlay zoning, would be to meet with the planning director and or the city manager, and we would make a determination as to whether we felt this was an area that should be pursued, and to recommend them to proceed. The developer would have to submit a written request for rezoning and a written statement specifying the details of the project. What is he going to do? A time frame for doing it, and so forth. And we have a specific guidelines in the ordinance that detail what he has to provide. Then the developer has to prepare a preliminary RAO plan or concept plan that includes site plans, floor plans, and elevation plans. The Planning Commission would approve the rezoning request and the preliminary RAO plan. Then it goes to the City Council. The City Council will then approve the rezoning subject to the preliminary RAO plan. So when this comes to you, if we have a proposal, you'll see what it's going to look like. And then you would approve rezoning. Once rezoning's done, then the developer comes back with a final RAO plan, and the RAO plan, final plan cannot deviate significantly from the preliminary plan. Planning Commission would approve the final RAO plan, and then when we expect most of these developments to involve subdivision, the developer would also submit a final subdivision plat. Failure to obtain final RAO approval within 18 months after the effective date of rezoning renders the rezoning null and void. And finally, no certificate of occupancy can be issued until all requirements of the final RAO plan have been completed. This is a major step for the city. The Planning Commission has spent several months working on this, and they have recommended for approval, and the Planning Department concurs with this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments from the council?
I have a question. Once the zoning is approved, they go in and they build and everything has been sold. Does the zoning change back to the original zoning then, or how does that work?
No, it would be designated on the zoning map as an overlay zone RAO. For example, we've got some other overlay zones. Historic zoning is an overlay zone, and floodplain and sinkholes are also floodplain zoning. So it would still be RD, but then we would hash it and show it on the map as an RAO. It would stay as RAO.
So when you're talking about rezoning, it's not like if you have an area that's RS15 or RS20 and the overlay is not going to change.
No. And rezoning is probably not the best terminology. It's establishing an overlay zone is what we would actually be doing.
Right.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mills, I guess just for clarification, I think folks that I talked to about this, that their concern is that if you've got a overlay area, instead of using rezoning, I mean, I think what I'm hearing, you and the planning commissions, what you're saying, what you've done is that you're not trying to diminish the value of people's property and thereby increasing density, et cetera. Because a lot of times that's considered when we do that. A lot of folks consider that to be a diminishing value of their property. It's actually being done in a way to help protect their properties and try to improve some blighted areas.
I think that was a term that I was going to use. This is intended for areas that, for lack of a better term, are blighted, and just the term blighted indicates lower property values.
Right.
And by encouraging new development at a which we intend to be attractive and more appealing development for the area, that's going to increase property value. So I think that's just the opposite. We believe this would improve property values, increase tax revenues, and be a benefit to the developer because he's going to have higher density. But we have to have some encouragement for the developer to go in and buy these dilapidated structures. We've got some of these that are condemned for various reasons, that it's just expensive to be redeveloped, and if there's not some type of encouragement, they're just going to sit there.
Right.
And that does nothing but bring down property values in an area.
And I just wanted to emphasize that because I think a lot of people are hearing an overlay district that can be just like put anywhere, but this is up to the Planning Commission. This is primarily for areas, for lack of a better term, blighted. And
yes.
You just can't do we just can't do an RO in over in lowland or something like that. And we just can't throw one down something like that anywhere. And I think that was a concern I was hearing.
Again, the first step would be the developer's going to come in and meet with Jim and I, and we'll look at it and see if it makes sense. If it's lowland or wherever, that's not the purpose of this. And again, the ordinance is tight. It explains and requires that you have to document that the properties that you're looking to redevelop meet the classification or the definition that we have for dilapidated, deteriorated, or condemned structures. And also, this is not intended as a parcel by parcel redevelopment. It has minimum acreage requirements. They're smaller in the areas we identified in the plan. They're 1 acre, and outside those are 2 acres. But if you do come in with an area, let's say you had something that was 3/4 of an acre but had severe blight, we can adjust that. That 1 and 2 acres is a guide. There is some adjustment allowed, especially what we look at is public benefit. Mm-hmm. If we're looking at an area that's totally dilapidated and it's 3/4 of an acre, but if we get a proposal that's going to bring in really nice development, we want to be able to still have that flexibility.
Well, and we want to encourage single-family homes.
That's correct.
So that people can become property owners and have an investment in their community. And I think, this is a perfect way to do that because it encourages the developers and it will help people to be able to get into homes that are affordable.
I think you said it early on, but the key ingredient and the main thing we're looking for here is revitalization.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
And not to put you on the spot, but could you, for an example for people listening and that may not be following, some other cities that have used this and what they've done, maybe some areas that have improved that you know of because of this?
This is sort of a unique animal. It's used. These overlay zones are used in different ways in lots of cities. Most of the time, they're done to encourage the construction of affordable housing. So we're sort of unique in what we're trying to do here. Affordable housing is not a primary goal here. It's just revitalization, but it's been used across the nation, not so much in Tennessee. I can really give you a specific example in Tennessee.
Okay.
Will the neighbors be notified by letter, notified?
Yes, this will go through the same, I used rezoning, but we're applying for overlay zone, but the same notification process, that's also spelled out in the ordinance. Any contiguous property owner, anybody within 600 to 1,000 feet will receive written notification, just like we do in our rezoning process. The property signs would be posted on the properties. Also, public notice in the local media would be provided. We would encourage public input on all these, and again, what we would envision seeing, and we've already had some interest from developers, is that we'll hopefully get an area started, and then the adjoining property owners will see this, and they'll either want to include their properties or would encourage other developers or that same developer to acquire those properties. Now, it's going to have the same impact of increasing property value, so that's a concern that may get to the point. But again, we've got quite a bit of flexibility and density to help overcome the cost for the purchase of the land.
Just hats off to the Planning Commission for doing this. I wish it was my idea. It's a great idea, and I appreciate all the work you guys put into it to do this. Unfortunately, Cookeville's getting big enough where we do have blighted areas, and using this as a tool to help us revitalize those areas is excellent. And I appreciate the Planning Commission doing all this.
They put in a lot of work. One thing I want to note, though, and I failed to just a minute ago, is that this is a brand new animal for us that we may, as we go along, have to come back and do some tweaking to the ordinance. I mean, we've spent months working on this, but it's difficult to foresee everything that could happen. So just so you'll know, if I'm back in 6 months after development and we've had some trouble, that's what we're trying to do.
Well, that's the nature of the beast. I mean, people.
Yeah. I think you mentioned once before about you wish there was something we could do to some areas that were old abandoned buildings. And this is kind of part of it.
I wish it was my idea, but I wish I could claim it. But I appreciate I'll put my vote on it. Vote yes.
Just trying to give you some credit right there.
Yeah, we look for this to work hand in hand with potentially some TIF projects that we may look at, so that these two things can work together and hopefully spur some pretty significant projects.
It's definitely a step forward for a lot of areas in the city. Any other questions, comments? All right, great. Seeing none, all vote.
5 yes votes,
Thank you.
motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Item 6, consider on first reading ordinance 130204 to establish an updated occupational safety and health program plan for the city of Cookeville. Sponsors Ms. Gail Fowler.
Mayor and Council, this ordinance establishes an updated occupational safety and health program plan for the city of Cookeville. Tennessee Code 50-3-910 provides that local governments have the option to be treated as private employers or to develop their own program of compliance. The city of Cookeville opted several years ago to develop its own program. It is required to be updated from time to time. We have received a request from Tennessee OSHA to submit an updated plan. It was last updated in 2003. The changes to the plan are fairly simple. The revision includes some terminology changes. The plan is now the program plan. The director is now safety director. They've added some specific rule numbers of Tennessee Department of Labor occupational health and safety regulations. They've added some new section. They added one new section about investigations and sanctions. Made some modifications to the appendices, removing an organizational chart and adding work locations and number of employees at each location, and rearranged the order of the accident reporting procedures. We're also updating official information with this plan. It's pretty lengthy. The program, I think, has worked well for the city of Cookeville for many years. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you may have, but would request your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
This basically is housekeeping.
Yes, ma'am.
This gets us in compliance with the state.
Yes, yes, sir.
Anything else?
No.
Seeing none, all vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Item 7, consider appointment to the Cookeville Tree Board. On behalf of the Cookeville Tree Board, I submit for approval the following name to fill one of the 2 remaining vacant positions on the tree board. Julia Lowe, who was placed into nomination and approved by the City Council in October 2012, has resigned. One position remained open prior to her resignation, still remains vacant. So I would like to submit Miss Julia Woodford as a name to consider for the tree board.
Do we need to make a motion? So moved.
I'll second.
You can.
I better not do that one.
Any questions, comments?
Did we get a chance? I haven't had a chance to look at her CV. Is that?
I've served with her on the historic board, and she is a great member, so I feel she'll hold up her end of the bargain on the tree board.
Yeah, we've been very lucky getting people to serve, and Julia serving is just another citizens coming forward. I think I read something recently when somebody was talking about people. It says if you want to get an opinion, or you'd ask a man, but if you want something done, you ask a woman. So I'm glad we have another lady stepping forward for one of these boards.
Well said.
Councilman Woodford, would it be tough on you if we don't approve her?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Item 8, consider awarding bid for the counterweight fly system for CPAC. Leisure Services Department sponsors Mr. Rick Woods.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you are aware, the Cookeville Performing Arts Center is a fully equipped theatrical facility that is now nearing 34 years old, and some of the technical equipment and furnishings of the center, including the counterweight fly system, is now showing its age and has caused us some concern, and we've looked at that, at replacing those components. The fly system hoists electric boxes, cables, and lighting fixtures above the heads of those on stage, and in addition to draperies and scrims, cyclorama, etc., occasional set pieces that are associated specifically with productions that are performed there. They're flown in and out during performances. The existing system no longer meets the current standards and codes and has begun to develop problems such as fractures in the cast iron components and various other signs of wear and tear. They're no longer plumb lines and that sort of thing. We advertised and accepted proposals for replacement of the complete system. The arbors, blocks, pulleys, clamps, turnbuckles, ropes, chains, pipe, everything to meet the current industry standards and codes. We estimated the cost to be approximately $200,000 and planned for that. We received 6 proposals. And after a very careful evaluation, we are recommending Beck Studios as the lowest bid and the best evaluated proposal. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and I request your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments from the council?
Actually, isn't that fly system a little bit older than that?
The building opened in '79. Is my math bad?
I thought it opened before that.
Well, anyway.
It doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I digress.
I think.
Oh,
Yeah, it opened in 1979.
I'm amazed you still have the original equipment.
It's done well, served us well.
And it's been used, too.
A lot.
I mean,
Right.
a lot.
And we're looking at maybe coming in $38,000 under budget?
Yes.
Or not to agree with that.
Back in the fund balance.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't publicly say the bid price. Why don't you say $161,000?
$161,934.
Good deal.
Thanks for getting 34 years out of it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well, I compliment you and Chad on what you do over there, too, so it's been good.
Yeah, 34 years.
Thank you.
It's fantastic.
Any questions? All right, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Woods. Item 9, consider awarding bids for semi-annual paving, asphalt mix, and mineral aggregate. Sponsors Public Works, Mr. Greg Brown.
Mayor and Council, we recently advertised and bid for paving and asphalt mix as well as mineral aggregate. I would recommend the low bidder in each item be approved.
I'll move to approve.
Motion for approval, all right. Second.
Second.
Questions, comments?
I do have questions. Hey, Greg, Mr. Brown, how is this price that you've got compared to years past? I mean, I know it fluctuates, and I appreciate this was on the consent agenda. I appreciate you guys putting this on our regular agenda because I had a question on it.
We bid this every 6 months. The asphalt, the Grady asphalt, the last 6 months it was $74.95, so it's went up $4.
Okay.
The 6 months before that it was $72.90, so it is going up a little bit.
Do you foresee it continue to go up? And I guess how long is this bid for?
6 months.
For 6 months. I think you said that.
Yeah. One time I think we went down just a little bit, but usually it's kind of based on the asphalt. The oil prices. So if they fluctuate up higher, it'll go up even higher.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be. I mean, I haven't really looked into this, but would it be prudent to? Can we get that contract for 12 months if you think the price is going to continue to rise?
They'll just raise their price up because they don't want to be stuck with it. That's why we're doing it at 6 months, because when you did it 12 months, they were raising it higher because they didn't know what it would be that much.
Greg, have we been pretty consistent in the years past, the last 3 or 4 years, of the amount we've purchased?
It depends on whatever we budget for the paving. It's been around $600,000 a year is what we've been budgeting for paving.
Okay.
And that's
held pretty consistent.
It's anywhere from 5 to, I think one year was up to 750 or something.
Right.
So it's fairly consistent.
And is the price pretty close to what you expected? I mean, as far as budget wise, I mean, paying with this bid price, are we looking at a budgetary issue coming up, or is it okay? Great.
Of course, we just whatever our budget amount for paving, that's what we just pave whatever we've got, and that's all we pay.
Until it runs out. Yeah, okay.
Whenever we run out of money, we stop.
It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Understand it. Yeah. Pay until you run out of money.
All right, any other questions?
No.
All right, seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes
Thank you.
votes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Item 10, consider awarding bids for the 2013 Cure and Replace Pipe Rehabilitation Project and Leak Detection Services. Water Quality Control Department sponsors Mr. Ronnie Kelly.
Mayor and Council, we have advertised and opened up our annual sewer rehab project. We had, how many bidders we got? But let me show you what we've got first. We've got 3 areas in town we're working on this time. You've got an area around DeBerry Heights, around over at Tech, and then the downtown area. Some of the areas we're doing, this is some area downtown we're working on where we got 1935 sewers that are older, and that's where some of those areas are located. This is some of the lines we've already maintained and repaired and cured in place in previous years, and we're trying to finish those out. And so this project will take care of the ones highlighted in yellow. The next one's Tennessee Tech watershed. It's some lines we're going to cure in place and dig up and fix some laterals in that area, in that drainage basin. And then the last one's DeBerry Heights watershed. We're going to do some TV work and cleaning in that area to try to figure out what's going on in that basin.
What's TV'd?
Excuse me?
What's TV work? You
Run a television
You
camera
run a
through it.
camera.
Yeah, I didn't bring you the last year. I did the video camera.
Yeah.
I figured I wouldn't do it again this year. But what people will see out in the field, they'll see these trucks sitting around, and then the guys will be. It's basically an inverted tube sock, and it's impregnated with fiberglass resin, and then it cures and hardens. And basically, you have a pipe like this. This is an old clay pipe that's broken, and then you'll have a pipe looking like that after it's said and done. And basically, it's rebuilding that infrastructure. So let me get back to the bids.
It is cool. It's not as expensive as digging them up and replacing
Well, it sure beats digging them up, doesn't it?
Fascinating.
Yes.
We do that at the
and-
hospital.
Excuse me?
We do that at the hospital all the time.
Yeah, it's like relining
Same
pipes.
stuff, yeah. Taking care of the pipes.
Get more use out of those pipes than Mr. Woods did out of his fly system.
We opened the bids. We had 5 bidders. In Situform Technologies was low bidder, $436,578.90. They've done work with us before. Good company, and we'd recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Do you have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Okay, the next, let me get through these, back to these slides. The next bid we have advertised and opened is for leak detection. We try to do about a third of the system every year. This is the grids that we'll be doing this year. We had 3 proposals. Richards LMC was a low proposal, $110 per mile. He has done it the last 2 or 3 years for us and has good price, very good work, and we're very happy, and we'd recommend your approval.
Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Yes, sir. I just have a parliamentary question. We didn't really separate this out on item 10, and we just voted on item 10. I guess, did we technically already vote yes for this, which I plan on doing, but...
Well, we voted yes at the cured-in-place pipe, and then he just did the leak detection, and
Well,
so...
I guess just documentation-wise, it's a parliamentary question, that's all it is. Is it, I mean...
Is it
If
okay to
anything,
vote?
we did it better
okay to vote
because
for it
we
like
did
this
them
because we've
separately.
already-
We can handle it.
Larry, what are you doing? Parliamentarian stuff. It's me.
He just likes to check you every so often.
You should have caught that, Alan.
Well, but actually, it's probably a little bit better and a little bit cleaner because they're separate.
Yes. Yes, they are.
We just didn't separate at the start. We should.
Well, we didn't, but we then separated in process. Ronnie, we gave you what you wanted, right?
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
Push the button.
I think you still need to vote on this one.
All right, here we go. I'll vote.
Now we did.
5 yes votes, motion
Thank you.
carries.
Kudos to you, though, Larry, for catching that.
All right, this section we're here from officers, councilmen, and city manager. Item 11, hold a public hearing on the annual progress report on the plans of services for the following annexation areas: Old Sparta Road, Horace Lewis Road, Old Bridge Road, Falling Water River, Buck Mountain Road, Dry Valley Road, East Highway 70 North and Interstate 40, West Cookeville and Interstate 40, Shagrag Road, Rebecca Place, Bunker Hill Road, Love Lady Road, Free Hill Road, North Washington Avenue, and South Willow Avenue areas. Sponsor is Mr. James Mills.
Mayor and council members, this is going to take a few minutes, so bear with me. As you know, when we annex an area, we're required by state law to prepare a plan of services. And a plan of services spells out what services we will be providing and when we'll provide them. Following the adoption of Public Chapter 1101 in 1998, we are required to give annual reports on these plan of services until they have been completed for each individual annexation. Since the adoption of Public Chapter 1101, the city has annexed 18 areas requiring annual reports. This includes the most recent area that we annexed, the Bennett Road Extension area, but it is not included in this report, but will be next year. The plan of services for 7 of these areas have been fully implemented. The locations of the 10 areas for which we still remain to complete certain services are depicted on the screen. We completed a comprehensive report which was recently published in the Herald Citizen, and now I'll spend a moment going through each of these individual areas. The Old Sparta Road, Horace Lewis Road area, and the only service remaining to be completed is sanitary sewer. The plan of services said we would do it within 15 years, which is June of 2015. As you know, an engineering design contract has been signed to design sewer improvements for this area. Within the Old Bridge Road, Falling Water River area, again, the only service remaining to be completed is sewer. Plan of services specifies that we'll provide it in this area following the same policies we use for the unserved areas already within the city limits. And the design contract I just mentioned will include sewer improvements for a portion of this area. In the Buck Mountain Road, Dry Valley Road area, all improvements have been completed with the exception of sewer and electrical service. Plan of services specifies that sewer will be provided based upon the same criteria that we use in unserved portions of the city, and the electrical service will be completed within 3 years after the effective date or after we acquire the service area. Significant progress has been made on the electrical service, and only 13 customers remain without city electrical service in this area. In the East Highway 70, Interstate 40 area, all services have been completed with the exception of water service and sanitary sewer. Plan of services specifies that water service will be completed within 15 years after the effective date of annexation, and that sewer will be provided based on the same criteria we use for unserved areas already within the corporate limits. For the water service improvements, only 1 hydrant remains to be completed, and the first phase of sewer installation projects have been completed, which included 31 parcels in the Burton Estates subdivision, And in 2012, we completed service for another 132 parcels. The West Cookeville Interstate 40 area, which was the largest annexation completed by the city up until that date, there's a few things remain to be completed in that area. They include water service, sanitary sewer, some street lighting, electrical service, and natural gas. The plan of services specifies that water services will be completed within 5 years after the city acquires the service area. Of course, we have not acquired the service area. This is primarily within the Double Springs district, so those remain to be completed. Sanitary sewer will be used, completed based upon the same criteria that's currently within the city. Electrical services within 1 year after we acquire the service area, and natural gas would be provided to the area north of I-40 within 5 years after the effective date of annexation, and to the south of I-40 when the level of development justifies installation. Existing natural gas customers have had their rates reduced to the city rate. Electrical service, significant progress has been made, and street lighting has been provided to approximately 90% of the area. There's still one small area, I think on the extreme western end, that's not been completed. Also, there has been some improvements made towards water and sewer. Specifically, it's been installed or will be completed in 2013 in the Highlands Business Park, which is a big portion of this area. In the Shagrag Road area, all improvements have been completed with the exception of sewer, and sewer is to be provided in this area based upon the same criteria we use to determine extension projects within the areas previously in the city. In the Rebecca Place, Bunker Hill Road area, again, all services have been completed with the exception of sewer. The plan of services for that area specifies that sewer will be provided within 20 years after the effective date of annexation. In the Bunker Hill Road area, which is contiguous to the Rebecca Place annexation, all services have been provided with the exception of sewer, and a small portion does not yet have natural gas. The plan of service for this area specifies 20 years for the provision of sewer, and natural gas is provided to 14 customers in the area. The next area is the Free Hill Road, North Washington Avenue area. All improvements have been completed with the exception of sewer. The plan of services specifies that sewer will be provided within 25 years after the effective date of annexation. And the most recent area added to our annual report is the South Willow Avenue area. And the only things remaining in this area are sanitary sewer and street lighting. The plan of services says that sewer will be provided based upon the same criteria we use for the current corporate limits. And as to street lighting, we're waiting on approval from TDOT for the location of street lighting along Burgess Falls Road, which is a state highway, and that is expected to be completed within 6 months. So that is the plan of services and the annual report. If you've got any questions, I'll be glad to try to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Questions? Got none?
Good. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's anybody here with questions or not. It's a public.
Yeah, I was going to open it up to anybody. Okay. This is part of the meeting. We'll let anybody come up and speak, ask questions, comments. Anyone? Please ask you to come forward and state your name. All right. That's it. This meeting's adjourned.